Good afternoon. The Clayton County Board of Commissioners work session is now called to order. The date is February 11th, 2025, and the time is 5:30 p.m. We're going to do roll call at this time, and you, District Commissioners, you can just say whether you are present or not. District 1?
Here.
District 3?
Present.
District 2?
Here.
And District 4?
Present.
Thank you. All commissioners are present tonight. First on our agenda, ladies and gentlemen, do you have any preliminary items for the next board meeting that you would like to discuss? I was trying to get it to you.
Excuse me.
And we were trying to get these out to you all a little earlier, but I still want to make sure you all had them. So does anyone have anything they'd like to discuss tonight? All right, well, seeing none, we will move forward with our agenda. Next on our agenda are our presentations for tonight. And our first presentation will be from 4C Program Reorganization Proposal from Fire Chief Tim Sweat.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board. I'll be before you twice this evening for these first two presentations. Once to tee up Chief Sweat. We're kind of putting these together. Our first presentation tonight is going to save you money this year and next year, and then my next presentation is going to make you money. So we hope you enjoy both of them. But this is kind of, I guess, the next phase of some programming that we started back when I was still fire chief, and this is tied directly to the new clinic that is currently under construction over at the new Fire and Emergency Services headquarters by Southern Regional Medical Center. So this reorganization will go to directly support those clinic operations, which hopefully they stay on track and will open early summer. So this will kind of set the stage and let the chief go ahead and start to hire some folk and get them trained. This will kind of be yet another first of its kind for Clayton County Fire, and look at how we can find ways to reduce cost internally as far as hiring and health and wellness of our employees, but then also provide additional wraparound services for our constituents. So with that, I'll kick it over to Chief Sweat and let him walk you through his presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief Sweat.
Thank you, Chief. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board, thank you so much for allowing me to come before you tonight and speak to the proposed reorg for our 4C program. So currently, the 4C program, which is the Clayton County Community Cares program, operates with the following staffing: one captain, an integrated health systems director, a benefits coordinator, a licensed clinical social worker, 4 nurse practitioners, and 5 paramedic lieutenants. Their goals are simple: the advancement of equitable access to health care and other essential services, and to develop community-based health care opportunities with the goal of improving community health while maximizing efficient use of the 911 emergency services. The proposed operations, as Chief Merck alluded to, as we move into the second phase of incorporating our health and wellness clinic, the proposal includes the continuation of the 4C program as it currently operates with its existing staff. Just a note, in 2024 alone, this program took over 4,500 calls out of the 911 emergency system, and those individuals needing our assistance were treated on a one-on-one basis by this program. So our goal is to continue that program as it has paid max dividends in the community. We would like to use the unfilled 4C positions to creating a staffing model moving forward for our clinic operations. Through this, we'll create an environment for cross-training of staff to maximize the use of the workforce and impact of the programming. The clinic operations will include the following. 1, I have asked through Director Ambles and Chief Staff Attorney Reed to kind of walk me through how we can go about, we Fire, being able to conduct our own pre-employment medical exams for all future Clayton County Fire and Emergency Services employee. Once improved, that will be a direct savings to the general fund. Right now, Director Ambles, all of those costs reside in her budget for the onboarding of my personnel when it comes to their medical assessment. So my ask through the clinic operations that we be allowed to conduct those pre-employment medical screenings moving forward, and I'll hit on that just a little bit deeper further along in the conversation. Second, the health clinic will serve as a clinic for all CCFES staff, with a proposal moving forward to potentially expand that countywide to include all county employees. Once again, if approved, that will generate direct cost savings to the general fund. Third, we are implementing mandatory annual medical screenings for all sworn CCFES staff. Once again, through hopefully limiting insurance claims, that will be another direct cost savings to the general fund. And last but not least, the clinic will serve as a backup to Southern Regional Medical Center to their emergency room should they have a need for overflow and need additional space to treat some of their patients. So the current slide shows our current program model, once again, as I've already explained, with the current vacancies on the right. And the next slide will show our proposed staffing, which we are taking, once again, and splitting the programs into two parts, leaving the 4C program intact, with that program being overseen by a captain. The proposed reorg will create a second captain, where that individual will now begin to oversee the clinic functions as we begin to move into that facility. Next, so what's the financial impact? So what I'm looking at doing is taking 3 current paramedic lieutenants, reproposing those to a clinic medic position. In addition, taking another paramedic lieutenant, creating a health and wellness trainer. Third, taking one of our community care practitioners, which is our nurse practitioners, and creating a nurse practitioner lead. That individual would kind of be the nurse practitioner lead of the clinic itself. And then last but not least, taking the community care coordinator position, reclassing that to create a second captain to once again oversee the clinic operations. So the impact of that will be an immediate cost savings to the general fund, once again, if it approved, for $35,317. So why a proposed reorg? The National Fire Protection Association, 1582, which is the standard on comprehensive occupational medical programs for the fire department, under Chapter 4, Roles and Responsibilities, 4.1.1 states the fire department shall establish a comprehensive occupational medical program that includes medical evaluations for employee candidates and members. Once again, employee candidates asking for approval in the future for us to conduct our own pre-employment exams, as well as having some type of annual medical assessment in place for all sworn fire department personnel. Second, CFAI, Centers for Fire Accreditation International, they are our accrediting body. Recommendation number 14, we were reaccredited in 2022. We are back up for accreditation again in 2027. Out of our 2022 reaccreditation, recommendation number 14 stated that we work towards implementing annual industry standard compliant physicals to ensure firefighter health and wellness. Once again, getting back to that mandatory annual health assessment. And last but not least, our current strategic plan, goal number 6, our plan is to expand and modify employee health and wellness programs to promote an inclusive culture designated to maintain and improve overall well-being, proper diet and fitness, and individual health management. So really quick, so I'll show you a few slides of the current clinic that's approved. And on the left is a typical exam room. We will have 4 of those. In addition, we will have 2 isolated exam rooms. Should the event we have someone highly contagious, we also have 2 of those rooms. Next slide will show you the 3 overflow and simulation lab rooms. Once again, this is kind of set up like a trauma bay that you may see in a typical emergency room. This will serve 2 purposes, once again as an ER overflow through Southern Regional. And in addition, we will also use this as simulation lab training as we continue through our initial and ongoing education of EMT and paramedics. Next slide will kind of show you the lab and then all of the lab work that we will be able to produce through our annual health and wellness assessments. I do want to hit real quick, the health and wellness assessments have been finalized. Right now we have a voluntary agreement in place. I will let you know that I was the first one to go through the health and wellness assessment yesterday morning. Took me 2.5 hours. I believe I spent more time with my staff than I have with my doctor over the last 5 years in 2.5 hours. So they were extremely thorough. It includes medical assessments as well as physical assessments, blood draws, instant lab produced, but we are ready to roll. I was the first one to go through it yesterday morning, and we are now moving forward with those that are willing to become voluntary recipients for this calendar year. So in closing, what is the future?
Let me say one thing.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
One of the things I wanted to add in here that Chief was talking about is kind of looking at the overflow rooms. I know some of you may be thinking, why would we kind of create that where we could potentially have ED overflow in our clinic? Well, one of the things we learned during COVID and in the years after COVID was the state made some changes in how we can transport patients. So we now have the ability for what they call alternative transport destinations, which means based off patient condition and based off the standing procedures of our medical director who is on staff, we can take them to an alternative facility. So in times where the fire department reaches unit saturation, we have no more transport units in service, which happens quite frequently, especially with the closure of AMC South and, of course, AMC, Atlanta Medical Center downtown. Our transport times have now increased. So if Chief sees that he's at a point where we have too many ambulances outside of the county at alternative facilities, whether that's Henry, Fayette, Piedmont, Noonan, or even downtown at Grady or others, he may make the call to start transporting some of the non-acute patients to our facility where they can be seen and then released. That helps keep our transport units in the county, and we can kind of create a program to try and get them moving a lot quicker, as opposed to just stacking them up at Southern Regional and kind of creating additional backlog there. So there's the clinic was really designed to be able to handle 5 or 6 different things, all save the county money. And in this case, keeps transport units in the county for those critical patients.
And just to expand upon that, I think some of you heard us. For some reason, Tuesday is our busiest day for Clayton County Fire and Emergency Services. And right before I walked into the boardroom, listened to my radio, dispatch let our line supervisors know that I had 1 transport unit in service in the county. So 1 ambulance to cover 144 square miles. It's those types of incidents that Chief Merck is speaking to, which allows us to expand and potentially transport to an alternative destination such as our clinic, so we can get those units back in service to the community quicker. So in closing, so what's the future of health and wellness at CCFES? So as I stated, January of this year, 2025, we finalized the health and wellness screening. Once again, I went through it yesterday morning. We have now opened that up for all of our sworn members and non-sworns to be voluntary recipients as we work through 2025. March of this year, next month, I will be onboarding a recruit class of 29 individuals. It will be my goal that those individuals that are onboarded in March of 25, as I get them in the house, I did not conduct their pre-employment medical screenings, but they will be understanding once they gain employment with us. Within the first month, they will go through our health and wellness screening that we put together. Moving forward is my goal in January of 2026 to make our mandatory health and wellness physical screenings mandatory for all sworn personnel in our organization, as well as being able to conduct our own pre-employment medical examinations prior to those individuals coming in the door with us. So with that, I appreciate your time, and I'll open it up or
All right,
defer
board
back to you
members,
for questions.
I would like to open up the floor at this time for any questions.
Yes.
Commissioner?
Chief, you say 4 employees. Is this fire employees or Clayton County employees as a whole?
Yeah, so our goal is through the clinic and Chief Merck's vision for years and years. Once we get into the actual brick and mortar clinic, get our feet wet, get our systems in place, it will always serve as a health and wellness clinic for Clayton County Fire, but it's our goal to expand that and make it a health and wellness clinic for the employees of Clayton County.
Okay, so when you mentioned earlier about saving the county money, so that was just for fire employees or for Clayton County employees before being hired?
A little bit of both.
So I think the opportunity is there, right, Commissioner? So initially, the numbers that we're providing would be for fire and EMS, because as the board knows, we're not only do we carry a Class 1 fire rating, but we're also internationally accredited. Part of that accreditation model is that we have this level of in-depth health and wellness screening within our organization. That's a large reason why we bought the 2 mobile clinics, back during COVID, and we have the capability that we have. Another reason that we looked at this is, as you know, as the state looks to cover more occupational health issues for public safety, they're putting that cost on the county. Ms. Ambles can tell you the cost for the mandatory firefighter cancer insurance hits the county. Now, we have a policy that covers it, but the county has to pay that. They're bringing PTSD now, and I can only imagine as more things become more prominent, they'll start to add that cost onto the county. So what this is doing is we're doing such a comprehensive exam of these employees and candidates that are coming in, we're able to catch conditions much quicker, thus saving, especially if they're on the self-funded plan, saving the county those costs and those claims, but then also being able to catch and identify health problems as they emerge. Now, to your point, the model can be expanded as far and as reaching as the board and Ms. Ambles would like to reach it. If we wanted to do all of the onboarding at a county facility, then we can save the cost of paying those externals. One thing we will not get in the business of is post-accident drug screen and workers' comp, for obvious reasons. That needs to be a separate, kind of chain of custody stuff. But there's a lot of opportunities. This clinic was designed and expanded to give this board opportunities to do as much in-house as you would like to see done. Understanding that the investments that it's made in fire and EMS with the nurse practitioners, a full-time staff physician, we have the in-house resources to do it, and can do it relatively efficiently. And just understanding our contracts and our purchasing power, you look at reduction in sick time, right? A lot of employees don't necessarily want to leave work to go to the doctor. During COVID, I can't tell you how many employees our nurses treated. And we were able to return them to work, and quite frankly, we had a much lower absentee rate during COVID than many of our partners around us that didn't have these capabilities. So we were very smart and intentional about how we invested those funds to get us here today, to be able to now start cutting costs and start trying to save some of these expenses.
Okay, speaking on that, some years ago, we did something similar to this on a smaller scale. So now how does this differ from what we've done, or will it incorporate what we have now? Or?
Yes, ma'am. So we've built upon that early programming. So if you remember in 2014, my edict from the board and those that were on it at the time was to go fix healthcare in Clayton County, right? So that's when we started our nurse practitioner program. We hired our first nurses in 2015, and we started building out the program from there. That's when we were going into people's homes. We were kind of doing the preemptive medicine, so to speak, and trying to keep these calls out of the 911 system. That program is still in place. Chief Sweat and his staff have morphed it and have built upon it. That's now the 4C program that you see, and it's yielding tremendous dividends in the community. They're actually reducing 911 calls from folk that just have chronic health conditions that just don't know how to manage them. Back before I left, we built a ramp for one individual that took over 200 911 calls out of the system because we built him a ramp. He called 911 to get in his car and back out when he went to the doctor. So it's just things like that that we're trying to be proactive about. So all this has built upon the investments that the board has made in the past, and we've gotten better and more agile as we've moved along. But all that programming is there. This makes it better.
So are we going to keep the mobile, have this and the mobile?
So our mobile clinics will be in support of this program. They're docked outside of this clinic. And primary reason, it's still, as you know, within the pocket parks that we have mobile clinic parking designated in each parking spot to go do mobile health and wellness days in the community. Our second mobile clinic that we purchased on the tail end of COVID has x-ray, and it has DOT compliant hearing, vision, pulmonary. What else can we do?
That's it.
And a full lab.
Right. And all three of those, vision, hearing, spirometry, respiratory, all that's included in our health and wellness assessment like I said, that took place. So all those features that are in those two clinics, the mobile clinics, are incorporated into these health and wellness assessments moving forward, as well as the pre-employment screenings, because we do hearing, vision, and spirometry on as a mandatory pre-employment medical screening, just now by a third-party
Have a
company.
little miniature hospital.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Well, and this clinic now serves as a base of operations for those nurses and our staff that's out in the field. So right now, they operate out of those mobile clinics. So now they'll actually have office space where they can come in, and then, of course, the department onboarded its own clinical psychologist. So she has an office in this facility as well. So when we have those employees that need those services, she can meet with them privately at the clinic. So it's really a full service deal for our employees.
Or he.
Or he. Right now, it's
But I love how it helps with the impact of Southern Regional as well, and Grady and some of the other spaces, because again, with losing those hospitals, it's had a great impact on all of Metro Atlanta. So thank you, a tremendous impact. All right, anyone else?
I do.
All right, Commissioner Davis.
Thank you.
Yes,
Love
sir.
what you're doing.
Thank you.
As far as, I think I already know the answer, but have to ask. As far as the general services that your department begins to facilitate, or does facilitate, does this impact it in any way?
No.
Okay, great.
We're taking the current billeted positions,
Okay.
kind of revamping it once again to keep that 4C program intact, because as Chief stated, they have paid dividends in this community.
Great.
We're simply just kind of realigning them to get ready to physically open up
Great.
the brick and mortar
I
clinic.
just needed validation
Yes,
and
sir.
verification on that
Yes, sir.
one.
Thank
And
you.
also, too, from the lab work that you have, I'm looking here, was that put together by one of the physicians, or who was that put together by?
So Dr. Mark Waterman, who serves as
great.
our full-time medical physician, he oversees all of this under his licensure. A lot of that infrastructure for this lab work was purchased with the two clinics several years ago as the COVID pandemic, and Chief Merck was managing that. So a lot of this infrastructure has been in place for years. We have expanded upon that. We bought 2 additional machines this past year to begin to open up the forward-facing clinic. But yes, all that is under the direction of our county full-time physician.
And last question, being that you foresee this as being to handle some of the overflow from Southern Regional, so this would be a 24/7, a 7/24 operation?
Right now, it will be staffed Monday through Friday as we get it open.
Okay.
To the Southern Regional overflow, that will have to come through as part of an agreement between the board and Southern Regional for how that looks. So as we move into that phase and beginning to look at those agreements, then we will modify the operations of the clinic. It's our goal to open it on day one, Monday through Friday, with our current staffing, and then as we begin to get these programs up and running, modify the staffing accordingly.
So will we have nursing there, or will we have emergency room doctors there?
As it pertains to the overflow,
Correct.
I foresee the overflow as Southern Regional, we're simply providing them space. Southern Regional,
Okay.
should they need to expand, their emergency room is overflowing, which happens daily. They have the staffing, just simply not the rooms. We open our doors to our clinic. We have 3
Okay.
bays for them in conjunction with our personnel if they're there. But I see that model as Southern Regional providing the staffing and the oversight.
Okay.
We're simply providing them with additional space.
And Commissioner, just kind of the other scenario, if it was Chief's decision because of his operational needs to be able to use that kind of as an alternative transport destination, then that would kind of be on as needed for a short time period to get through the influx or whatever's happening in the county. And then that would be staffed by Dr. Waterman, who prior to us hiring him was the president of Atlanta Medical Center as it closed. So he's been an emergency room doc for, I think, longer than I've been in the business. But then our nurse practitioners, who all have emergency experience, and paramedics would be staffing that part of it. So that would kind of be as needed, and we would use operational personnel in-house to do that. So there's 3 different potential scenarios.
So they'd be covered under their own malpractice insurance. We wouldn't have to cover any just for our
Correct.
our billing services. Okay.
No more than, we already cover
Already covered
them
that.
for their full scope of practice, so emergency care is what we're paying them to do now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Hambrick.
Well, you just touched on it. I was gonna ask about liability for us with Southern Regional and all, but
They're insured and by scope of practice can do way more than what they're doing now. So whatever we would want them to do in an emergency setting, they're insured through the county to do and through the state. And it's within their scope of practice. So it would be no different than a paramedic going and picking them up. If anything else, it shields the county a little bit more because now that paramedic is taking them to a nurse practitioner and they're being seen by a physician. And then we're discharging them from there if we choose to use it in that way. That's just, it's an option, but right now we're focused on employee health and wellness and the things that we can do to cut costs.
And then they'll take the overflow if they have issues at the hospital.
Right.
All right. Board members, are there any other questions at this time? All right, thank you.
Thank you all
Phenomenal
so
job.
much. Yes,
All right, thank you. Next, we will have, again, Chief Murkison with Game Changer Nation, the Game Changer Nation report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board. As I stated earlier, this is the part of the presentation saga where we try to make you some money. So as I bring up Rob Hanna, who is with Game Changer Nation, and Nicole Horn, who is with our own superb Parks and Rec. So this is a program that we've been working on for quite some time. If you recall, several months back, the board entered into an agreement with Game Changer Nation to do an assessment of all of our Parks and Rec facilities and kind of look at the potential and possibility for expanding our current infrastructure into a championship caliber sports complex that we could use to eat into some of what is a burgeoning $1 trillion market, which is sports tourism. So Rob Hanna and his staff came in and worked with internal Parks and Recreation staff to go through that. And what we're going to present tonight is a very high-level overview of what their findings were. And just to go back and cover the scope, as Rob comes up, is his scope was to engage Clayton County in a consulting advisory role on how to redevelop recreational facilities, advise on sports and wellness engagement actions, and then help target and create more revenue-producing programming within the county. So at this time, I'd like to invite Rob Hanna up with Game Changer, and he'll walk you through his scope and methodology, and then myself and Director Horn will take you through what our proposal is for next steps and the potential revenue that can come from those steps. So, Rob?
Good evening, Mr. Hanna. How are you?
Good to see everyone.
Good to see you.
It's been 6 months since I last was here, and things have changed a little bit as the setup is a little different, so interesting. Yeah, as Mr. Murkison suggested, we were able to put together a 86-page feasibility report assessing all of the things well, these core 4 things regarding the development of facilities here in Clayton County. So I'll go through 4 of the core items that the scope entailed. The first one was to assess the redevelopment of selected parks into championship caliber facilities like East Cobb Baseball, who hosts perfect game baseball tournaments that will stimulate tourism and impact local economy. So if you're familiar with East Cobb or not familiar with East Cobb, they're a facility that's in in Cobb County, and they have built a model where they offer tournaments on the baseball end. So kids come from all over the nation to participate in these tournaments, and they are recruited and scouted at this event. And so it's a really big deal, and they produce a lot of talent at that particular development. The second thing we were tasked to do was assess the potential of developing a destination-based sports complexes like IMG Academy, Lake Point, and Rock Hill that create jobs and bring differentiation to the county. To give you an idea of what Rock Hill does, Rock Hill was a textile community. They had lots of textile industries in place, and for several reasons, that industry died. And so it kind of left the town with people without jobs, and there was no real direction. And so they created a sports tourism model where they converted some of the textile buildings into sports facilities, and they were able to drive a lot of tournaments and events into that community, and they basically revitalized the entire community. Thirdly, We looked at creating activations and special events like competitive social ventures who host national pickleball events that create social engagement for residents and corporate events for team building, wellness, and entertainment. COSO Ventures, their founder, Neil Freeman, he is a guy who's been involved with building recreational facilities, and he really enjoys bringing wonderful places for people to gather, socialize, and have fun. And so COSO Ventures has really jumped into the pickleball market, and they're building pickleball venues all over the nation. And that model is huge in driving communities to have something to do and stay engaged with one another. And then lastly, create pathways for non-property tax revenue generation to diversify the county's revenue streams and create financial stability. In having those things as the targets for things we were tasked to look at, here's a summary of what we did in order to create the findings. Number one, we reviewed all the current parks and recreational facilities to determine suitability for redevelopment into championship caliber sports facility. Secondly, we conducted kickoff visits within the county, which included tours and meetings with key client representatives, stakeholders, and business leaders. Third, we had direct outreach to local area user group candidates and national and regional sports teams, clubs, and associations, and tournament organizers that could represent candidates for use of the new championship sports facility in Clayton County. And then lastly, we conducted more than we reached out to more than 20 major organizations that we targeted and had over 30 telephone interviews with organizations that represented over 100 annual sporting events around the country. And the reason that was important is because we wanted to really determine if we built something, would people want to come to a destination south of I-20 in Atlanta to have tournaments and events.
Of course they would.
Of course they would, yes. And so a part of our findings, and we'll elaborate in more detail on the other ones, but after review of the existing parks to determine suitability, we found that most of the folks that we interviewed, their conditions were they wanted a park that could accommodate volume. They wanted to be able to handle, have multiple fields. They wanted to be able to have multiple indoor court spaces in order to have a bigger and more robust event. They also wanted to make sure that the facilities that they used had the type of appeal, that they were modern, that they had the ability to do analytics and provide feedback to scouts and coaches. And so as we analyzed the 4 primary parks here in Clayton County, Morrow Lake City, Panhandle Park, Flat Shoals, and Rum Creek, as we dug into it, we found that most of those parks lacked the proper infrastructure to be converted into a championship caliber park. And the reasons for that were several. In order to have a tournament or destination style event, you need the hospitality that will support it. You need the proper hotels, you need the right retail, you need those kinds of things. And most of our parks are built in residential communities, which means they're not necessarily next to the kind of amenities that we would need. Also, the majority of the parks that we reviewed lack the ancillary entertainment that these young people want. So they come for the tournament and event, but they want to stay and play while they're here for the tournament. And for parents, convenience, them not having to get in the car and drive 20 or 30 minutes away to have that is something that's very much a concern. And for the tournament directors, they want kind of a package that's one size fits all. They want to play, they want to stay, they want to be entertained, so that they don't leave the park and they're on time with their tournament games. And then lastly, we looked at the land capacity around the existing parks and the fact that a lot of them are landlocked. And so, it makes it very difficult for a conversion, but based on our findings, we see that a sports tourism model is clearly an opportunity that Clayton County should take advantage of.
Thank you, Rob. So as we move forward, so given all of the data that Rob has presented, the overwhelming recommendation from his company was for the county to seek a location to construct its own suitable championship sports complex that can provide what tournament directors today are looking for, but also provide the technology that many of what would be our competitors are lacking. And this would kind of give us the opportunity to set Clayton County apart. So our proposal to the board this evening, should you so wish, would be to enter into a scope amendment with Game Changer for the development of a national championship caliber sports and entertainment complex capable of supporting the growing demand of the sports tourism industry. And one of the things we wanted to do was bring you the data to validate that proposal and show you what the potential is and what's going on around us. As we were talking earlier today, the city of Zebulon, which is not nearly as located as we are, just rezoned 58 acres for the purpose of building a major sports and entertainment complex. So it's happening and it's coming around us. The question is, do we jump on it and become a part of it? I know this may be tough for you to see. I tried to get it as big as we could, but this is just a little bit of the demand. So to gain a better understanding of the market for tournament activity that currently exists, Game Changer conducted an inventory of basketball and volleyball facilities and tournaments throughout the greater Atlanta metropolitan area and southeastern region, leveraging a variety of tournament aggregator websites, including the Georgia Youth Athletic Services and Sports Engine. They compiled data on over 900 tournaments that were held in the most recent winter sports season. As shown below, there were over 200 basketball and 700 volleyball tournaments held throughout the metro area. The vast majority were conducted within 1 or 2 days. The average tournament entry fee was approximately $330 per entrant for basketball and nearly $200 for volleyball tournaments. The vast majority of these tournaments were hosted by local community sports associations for regional or national qualifier competition, or for fundraising purposes, or for a facility to generate occupancy within the complex. So as we look at the sports tourism market, currently today, you can see we're actually 2 years ago, it was a $544 billion industry. In 2024, it grew to $618 billion, and by 2013, is projected to grow to a little over $2.089 trillion. That's just how fast sports tourism is growing in the country, and you can kind of see the European equivalents to that and how far it's growing, which shows you that there is a demand for international sports tourism. And when you look at SportsLink, which is a travel service provider for sports teams, they currently extended their partnership with Volleyball Australia. So we're starting to see really an uptick in international travel, which once again positions Clayton County relatively nicely. So when you look at Rock Hill Sports Complex, which Rob talked about, so it's owned by the city of Rock Hill, South Carolina. It opened in 2020. It's a 170,000 square foot warehouse that was converted into a multi-use facility. It cost them $27 million to do it. In today's dollars, that equates to about $35.6 million. They are currently expanding right now based off the revenue that they've generated, and I'll show you that here in just a second. But their initial facility had 9 basketball courts and 17 volleyball courts. So everything that they house currently is indoors. They don't have any outdoor competitive sports. So you're probably asking yourself, well, that probably limited them in revenue. Well, let's see what they did. So this is really hard to see, but this was fiscal year ending 2023. If you look at the number of events, they held 65 events, and it kind of gives you not only the event attendance and revenue generated, but it gives you the total market impact for these 65 events, to include hotel night rooms sold, overnight services for visitor lodging. So they had a direct economic impact to the city of Rock Hill of over $57 million. They had an indirect impact of $25 million for a total economic impact in fiscal year 23 alone of over $82 million. And that was off 65 events at one facility that can only do indoor sports.
They started.
Ma'am?
When did they start?
They started in 2020, they opened the facility. So within 3 fiscal years, they were generating over $80 million in revenue.
And that's the money we need to be.
We look at Boomba Sports Complex in Sanford, Florida. Boomba is currently owned by Seminole County. The year opened in 2015. It's on 102 acres. Cost them $27 million when they opened it. It's currently 15 fields. They don't have any courts for volleyball or basketball. It's strictly baseball, softball. Located on 102 acres, it was a $27 million tournament sports complex that features 15 baseball, softball, multi-purpose fields. 9 are synthetic and 6 are natural turf that can also be used for soccer, football, and lacrosse. The 15 fields are located in 4 different hubs with concessions and public restrooms at each. It has a centrally located administration building, which also includes a meeting room with a capacity to fit up to 120. The park also includes a large central pavilion, a playground, walking paths, a central picnic area, batting cages, bullpens, bleachers, and shade covers. So when we look at the economic impact of this facility, so it goes back to fiscal year 15-16. You can kind of see each year how their total economic impact has grown. To 22-23, they hit $43 million for a combined economic impact to the county of over $214 million since the facility opened. And once again, that's kind of restricted to outdoor field sports and not doing kind of a holistic thing. So as we look at kind of what our facility, what we would look to do is we would look to do, if you can play it on a court or on a field, we will offer it. And with Director Horn, and I'm going to bring her up to go through the next couple slides, we're going to bring another dimension that is a booming market that parents just spend insane amounts of money on, but that's competitive cheer and dance.
Yep.
And providing for that. So, Director Horn.
Good evening, Madam Chair,
Good
Madam
evening.
Vice Chair, and Commissioners. So I'm here just to talk a little bit about competitive cheer. As we had the conversation with the gentleman and we were talking about bats and balls, I thought it was important for us to also talk about a sport that brings in over $1 billion within its own industry. With Metro Atlanta having 30 cheer gyms and 4 of those gyms located in Clayton County, we thought it was important that we add this particular sport to this project. So the projected average annual direct and indirect economic impact of a championship caliber sports complex in Clayton County, featuring, of course, this cheerleading. It'll have 8 basketball courts, 5 baseball courts, and 3 soccer football fields, as outlined in the following slides. Additionally, you have included indoor spaces to accommodate competitive cheer. These estimates reflect stabilized operations anticipated by the 4th full year of the activity. But I did, before Chief kind of gets to that, I did want to point out that when you look at competitive cheer, I gave the example. So if it's high school cheer that we're talking about, they can participate on a gym floor, which is a dead floor, or we can raise the floor where it's a stage on a spring floor. So I just wanted to show that. Potential revenue, the city of Tampa hosts Varsity Spirit every year, 26,000 athletes from up to 12,000 in 2023. Estimated economic impact was $15 million plus. There were over 14,000 hotel rooms booked. That doubled in 2023. 600 teams participated from 41 states and 5 countries. The city of Atlanta hosts cheer sport every year around Valentine's Day weekend. It's one of the bigger competitions that varsity offers. 30,000 athletes, estimated economic impact $40 million plus, and currently for 2025, cheer sport has sold out. And then lastly, the city of Orlando, the Open Championship Series, which we didn't include the summit, which is a little bit bigger than this, is 21,000 athletes. It's a 3-day event, $27 million in impact for the city of Orlando.
Thanks for including cheer.
Right?
You're welcome. And flag football, he'll get to it.
That's right.
Okay.
As we said, so if it can be played on a field, a court, a gym, or if it's some level of activity that parents will spend money on, you'll be able to do it at our National Sports Championship complex. So by applying some economic multipliers, the total impact of the championship caliber sports complex encompasses both direct spending and the subsequent rounds of respending, creating sustained economic benefits for Clayton County. These impacts extend beyond the facility itself, catalyzing growth across key sectors and positioning Clayton County as a thriving hub for sports tourism and economic activity. So one of the things we did is we took current data from what parents are paying for events over the last 2 years, and we analyzed our facility, what we could offer, taking into account a 5-year ramp-up period, and we applied what our current fee structure is, what our current parking, what our current tourism dollars are, and then brought in some wraparound facilities, understanding that after we build a facility, the rest of the development will build up around it, to not only support our facility, but our facility supporting that. So we rounded out numbers. You can kind of see we've broken them down into basketball, volleyball, other court revenues, soccer, lacrosse, football, baseball, softball, group and rental revenues, total facility revenues, and then total economic impact. So estimates year 1 are a little over 12 million. And you can see that rounds out to by year 5, when we deem to be at full operational capacity with some wraparound development, we could have a facility capable of generating a little over $85 million a year in direct economic impact to the county. And that doesn't take into account property tax revenue. That's strictly sales tax, rentals, and event fees. The other thing that does not take into account are some other incentives and stuff that we're looking at for a district, that other large districts like this have some other tax benefits and stuff that will go kind of on top of that. But our goal would be to create a facility that is capable of luring events like varsity and cheer sport and some of these others. If you can bring in one event over 3 days and generate $47 million for the city, it's not a bad investment for 3 days worth of work. So that's where we are. So we will open the floor for any questions that the board may have.
All right, Commissioner Allen.
2 questions. Gymnastics was left out because we do travel. My daughter's in gymnastics, so I think this is great. We do travel out of state. I have a friend who was just in Savannah for something similar, so I think this is great. First question, have we looked at like possible location?
So we are currently looking at 3 or 4.
Okay.
We've had some conversations with y'all about some real estate
perfect.
goings on, so we'll just park that there.
And then, is this something that we'll have to do bonding for?
Yes, ma'am. So if you remember, the board not too long ago created a Public Facilities Authority, which is specifically created for these types of county-owned projects.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it active?
Yes, ma'am. So all of the board members have been seated, so now it's just going through kind of creating their bylaws and operating structures. Hopefully we can get that accomplished by the time y'all tell us to go build this.
Okay, will
Hopefully.
they be doing the bunding, or how does that work?
Ma'am?
Will they be doing the bunding, or how does that work? How will that work?
It would be our hope that the Public Facilities Authority could bond the county-owned portion of it, so that those funds can stay within the Public Facilities Authority, because it would kind of be, this is kind of phase 1, it's kind of the mothership, so to speak. So it would be our hope that by the time we get to year 4 or 5, where we're generating tens of millions in tax or non-tax property revenue, then we can start to take that revenue and redevelop and reinvest in some of our other parks to create other little miniature satellite facilities that can feed the larger one.
Commissioner Reeves.
Oh, I'm curious about the cost-benefit analysis of building a new facility versus perhaps like remodeling or renovating one of our current kind of like larger Parks and Recs facility like South Clayton or even Lake Spivey, which has some many pickleball courts. I thought I was going to remember the number, but I mean.
Yes, ma'am. So we did do that cost-benefit analysis, which is why we came back and recommended that it would make more sense for us to construct a new facility. The problem with, so let's just take South Clayton and look at it, because it's one of the larger, newer parks that has multiple fields. The problem is we can't provide any support structures for it. So when you look at what available land may be around it, if you're trying to attract a national tournament, let's just deal with Little League World Series, right? So when they're not playing baseball, what do? Where do they go? Where do they stay? Where do they eat? Where do they play? Right? So one of the things that we're trying to do is we're not wanting to invest millions of dollars to rehab a park only to have the leakage go outside to Henry and Fayette once the tournament's over. So what we want to do is create a destination spot so when you're not playing baseball, you have somewhere to play. Within the same development, you have somewhere to stay, you have somewhere to eat. So when these folk travel to Clayton County, we want every tax dollar from them we can get. We did focus on South Clayton because just from an optic standpoint, it would make the most sense to try to renovate. We just can't provide any of the support for it. So it becomes a toss of, it's kind of what we struggle with now is they come here for one thing, but then they go somewhere else to eat and play and do all that. So we're not interested in supporting Henry or Fayette's economy. We want to grow ours and keep as much of that tax base here. So we did look at that because we recognize financially that would make more sense. But from a use and revenue generation standpoint, we need to build the top-notch best of the best so that not only are we keeping the services here, but we start pulling, right? Why would you drive to Emerson, Georgia if you can drive to Clayton County and have the same tournament, if not better, experience? And same thing with why would you go to Seminole County or Florida? Rob was involved with several of the parks down in Florida that have grown to host spring training for professional baseball. So when you start looking at, Nicole mentioned flag football. So there's a lot of women's flag football leagues that are coming up. Atlanta has a team that needs a home. So why should we not build them one, right? So we need to start looking at how sports tourism is growing and the potential. When Atlanta United was looking for a training place, we could have had one. You know, we're hoping to get in on some of the FIFA money, but that clock's running out. Because as you know, the 2026 World Cup is coming, and you're going to have a lot of international soccer teams looking for somewhere to play, and right now they're going to go to Trilith and Fayette County.
And Chief, I think Mr. Hanna gave several reasons that were very good reasons as to why we can't handle anything like that here.
In a renovation, yes, ma'am, but our hope would be that this facility generates the capital and the revenue that we can go renovate a South Clayton or a Rex or a Lake City Morrow Park, so that not only could it host some smaller tournaments, but then our Clayton County kids are playing on championship caliber fields.
And we can up our sales taxes rather than focusing on property taxes all the time.
There you go.
We can lower our taxes for our tax base, and we got to look at some diversified streams of revenue coming in. And like I said, right now I have a parent that's watching this, and they're saying, go Clayton County, basically, because we've got to look at different ways that we can bring in money, and this is perfect. I mean, I remember as we were looking at this, Commissioner Hamper, we were looking a couple of years ago, and as we were talking about, bringing in some sports complexes, we were told no at one point in time, but I just thank you all for moving this forward because, money's going everywhere else, and Clayton County is right here by the airport, and we should be bringing in that revenue. So thank you all for pushing this forward. Commissioner Davis?
For me, this has been a long time coming. The documents I've written for this and to talk about the impact that it has. We had one girls flag football camp this past summer. We have another one slated that a gentleman from the Baltimore Ravens is putting on this summer. I love what we're doing and where we're going. And what we also have to realize that hopefully we can get with Chief with this medical portion, because we have to realize as well the number one sport for injury is girls cheerleading. So we want to begin to look at that, but we want to really begin to look at these sports from a holistic approach, not just the sports. I mean, granted, we love the primary sports, the baseball, basketball, football, but a lot of these secondary sports are what's generating the money. The girls volleyball tournament down in Orlando for a 4-day tournament, that's almost $100 million for that. So we begin to look at these. We've got some things in place. I've spoken with economic development and some other factors, and I think we need to get this going sooner rather than later.
Hello, Chair,
Hello.
Vice Chair, Board. There's two other things to kind of keep in mind that the committee and the collective have been talking about. So we talk about service populations. The other part is our persons with disabilities community. Oftentimes, when they're trying to figure out ways to continue activities, and a lot of times we don't have destination opportunities for them. So that will also be a population that we can really tap into to get a lot of the work done. The other part of that is keep in mind is that we talk about the behind-the-scene industries. And I know Commissioner Davis knows this firsthand. We're trying to train individuals how to be officials, how we get them to have an understanding of the behind the scenes or the horticultural side of how do you manage a field. So we're creating other opportunities, not just the actual play opportunities, but also creating workforce development opportunities as well. So do keep that in mind if the board sees the value in moving forward with the project, that we're looking at the revenue opportunities, but we're also looking at workforce development in a different way and training these individuals to be able to tap into a skill set so that therefore they can do other things in the community once they develop that skill set.
Yeah, and also too, I'd like to add, Chair, is that we also have tapped and almost agreed upon where they want to do a basketball officiating camp here. And we have to realize from a high school to a college to a pro level, I mean, granted, $200,000 a year to run up and down the court and officiate a basketball game. It's not that bad money, not that bad money. And so we've got to begin to get these things involved. And right now, it's an underserved market when it comes to officiating because of the COVID.
And to back off what the COO was referencing, one of the things that Rob and I talked about and Director Horn as well is one of our fields in each hub, so whether it's a football, soccer field, lacrosse field, or a baseball field will be a sensory type field where we can offer sports for autism and some other athletes with disabilities. So that will be built into this. So for those specialized leagues that need a field that can accommodate whatever athlete we may have presented to us, we want to be able to offer it.
It's probably under federal law, it was, that facilities had to have those.
And that's somewhat vague as to what that means, but there's been a lot of developments within especially sports around children with autism and kind of some of the things that need to be included within those fields. I know there's a lot of grants out there right now for parks. We've looked at adding a small park to the District 3 Pocket Park, which will be at the admin building. So when we're designing these complexes, we're trying to make sure we've thought of every little niche. So if there's some agency out there, going back to Commissioner Allen's point, we looked at trying to figure out how do we take a gym that's basketball and volleyball and then make it cheer and this, and we quickly realized we're trying to do too much in one area, and the more you try to do, it's limiting it. So we just added some additional square footage so we can accommodate the cheer, we can accommodate the gymnastics, and it's more of its own stadium style seating, so you can have those championship caliber events and then be able to provide the digital infrastructure that parents want.
And then structures like this bring your food parks and your different, your different things like that, which,
it's baked
moves
in
into
head
the
count,
culinary
right?
arts
So
and things of that nature.
if you want a nice restaurant that's also a microbrewery, they want to see X number of heads that can attend it, and if you can provide them a facility that has a couple 100,000 visitors a year, that makes it a no-brainer for them.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Any other questions at this time, board members? All right, thank you, great job.
Awesome, thank you.
Next on our agenda is item 3. The Solicitor General will be coming up to discussing additional positions. And is Ms. Ambles here as well? Okay, hey, Ms. Ambles.
Yes,
How are you?
ma'am. Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners, and good evening to our Clayton County citizens. The HR Director is going to be quiet this evening and turn it over to Solicitor Brooks.
Good evening.
Good evening.
If you will allow me just a moment to organize myself. And let me thank DCOO for the tee-up with the sports complex because with more people comes more crime.
Yes.
And that's my
yes.
responsibility.
Yeah, it's a no crime zone, sir.
So we have a responsibility to ensure the safety of our citizens and our tourists. So, thank you, DC. Well, again, good evening.
Good evening.
All right. My name's Charles Brooks. I haven't had the opportunity to speak to this new board, but I know many of you personally and in passing in some cases. But I stand before you, I'm saying, asking you to allow me to be the best version of the Solicitor General that the citizens have elected me to be. I wanted to share with you the culture shift. That's a familiar title, right? It was the culture shift, because several years ago, this county, I think it was in 2023, the end of 2023, that this county took a great interest in, very intentional interest in shifting the culture of county leadership and operational leaders to a culture of accountability. So as we are in the throes of budget preparation, I want to talk to you about personnel matters, but not necessarily personnel matters, but that personnel matters. And how do we go about doing that? How we recruit, how we train, how we retain talent to the benefits of our citizens to provide the highest level of service. So I guess a framework of where I'm going. I want to highlight operational challenges that relate to the Solicitor General's recruitment and retention strategies as a result of limited budget flexibility in areas of hiring and promoting employees. I'll do that by way of working through an introduction, problem identification, impact analysis, situational analysis, as well as suggested resolutions. Introduction. So to frame this conversation, I may use some operational language that the county uses a system called Munis, and in some cases I might use language that's, that you would be familiar with from the Munis system. But first, let us introduce ourselves. We are the Solicitor General's office. The official name of the office is the Office of the Solicitor General of the State Court of Clayton County. What is the Solicitor General's office? Well, I could say that on the surface we are petty crime prosecutors. Petty crimes. When you think about sports facilities, when you think about those things that tourists do, a lot of times you think about DUI, you think about traffic, you think about fights, you think about all these things that happen in these public spaces. Those are crimes that my office prosecutes, in addition to domestic violence offenses and a myriad of other offenses. The large majority of crime is misdemeanor crime. It's not felony crime, it's misdemeanor crime. So in Clayton County, whereas the numbers of violent felony offenses have decreased, the number of petty offenses have increased. And that's for a number of reasons. But let me say this. We are the office that probably has the greatest impact on the crime rates. And that's more so than the police department. Why do I say that? Because all of the police departments, they feed into the solicitor's office. They feed us cases. And if we drop the ball, then the crime rate goes up. And so the necessity for us to ensure our citizens' quality of life, their general safety and well-being happens if we have the right staff and enough staff to ensure that we can do what we're tasked to do. Prosecutors. There was a Nazi prosecutor named Robert H. Jackson. He was an Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court in 1941 through 1954. He said the qualities of a good prosecutor are as elusive and as impossible to define as those which mark a gentleman. The citizen's safety lies in the prosecutor who tempers zeal with human kindness, who seeks truth and not victims, who serves the law and not factional purposes, and who approaches their task with humility. In Georgia, there's case law that says that a prosecutor is a minister of justice, not just a usual advocate, but an advocate not for one party, but for all parties. The duty is to seek justice, not merely to convict, to represent the sovereign or to represent the state, to represent the county, and make decisions in the public interest. To exercise restraint in the discretionary exercise of government power and in the prosecutor's role as an administrator of justice. He or she has broad discretion in making decisions prior to trial about who to prosecute, what charges to bring, and which sentence to seek. So, when I say that our office is directly responsible for crime rates, I mean that. The case law supports it, and our experience suggests it as well. If you go to the mission of our office, the mission of the Solicitor General's office is to restore public trust, which has been lost in law enforcement, and confidence in the criminal justice system through a commitment to community outreach and excellence in prosecution by pursuing justice for victims of crime through competence, integrity, and fairness to all. How do we do that? From that, we pull out 4 pillars, and then our office stands up on 4 pillars. So very similar to this building. If you look around, you got these columns. Those are structural pillars, and that's what keeps the buildings standing. Keeps the roof above us, keeps the floor beneath us. And our office stands on the same thing. And for our pillars, our office stands on community first. So when I say community, our office understands that we mean community first. When I say integrity, our office understands that we know that and we understand that integrity matters. When I say fairness, our office understands that we mean fairness always. And when I say competence, our office understands that we say competence plus. What does each one of these mean? What does each one of these mean? Community first. In every prosecution, we're talking about a person. And that person represents a family, and that family represents a street. That street represents a block, and that block represents our community, Clayton County. So as we touch each one of these cases, we're not touching numbers, we're touching people. And so as we prosecute these cases, we try to be mindful of the impact that it can have negatively or positively on the community. Going to integrity, it looks like in our political landscape that integrity might not matter, but it does. It absolutely does. And what we do in the dark, we do in the light. We don't hide the ball. And in everything that we do, we try to be, not even we try, we are upright. Fairness always. It's our responsibility to be fair to everybody that comes before us. To the defense counsel, to the defendant, to the judge, to ourselves in some cases, and to our colleagues. To this board and to the citizens, we have to be fair. I instill that in my people, and we live by it. And last, certainly not the least, competence. We say competence plus. What does competence plus mean? To be competent just means you know what you're doing, okay? But to be the plus factor, it means I know what I'm doing. I know what you're supposed to be doing also. I know what the judge is supposed to be doing. I know what the defense is supposed to be doing. Competence plus is knowing how the system is supposed to work and ensuring that it works in the right way. And so these are the pillars that our office stands up on. And without one of these pillars, our office fails. The vision of our office is to be a catalyst for radical community transformation. I've come to many a board of commissioners meetings. And one of the biggest things I've heard through the years is the trash in the county, right? Trash in the county. Picking up the trash and beautification of the county. Some of that comes to me. But if I don't have the manpower to prosecute something that's minor as a littering case, then it's going to keep coming to you by way of public comment. I knew Mickey was going to do that. Additionally, to be a tool for stopping crime on all levels by addressing crime on the lowest level. You'll never find a felony offense that didn't have a misdemeanor predecessor. Every murder, domestic violence murder, probably had a misdemeanor that happened years before. And if we can address and curb behavior, change mentalities, change behaviors on the misdemeanor level, then we don't have to get to the felony level. So that leads to our next vision to be a vehicle for changing mentalities and behaviors. And last, to be the gold standard for stern, fair, and balanced prosecution. Although I feel like I'm a capable Solicitor General, the success of this office, of the Office of Solicitor General, is the direct result of the efforts and labors of our staff. Under the leadership of these very committed leaders who you see on this screen, and many of which are here today. To my right is Ms. Keidra Finn, who is my Chief of Staff. Behind me is Ms. Brittany Freeman, who is my Executive Assistant. To my left is Chief Investigator Tommy Henderson. And in the rear is Deputy Chief Shabria Ponder. And all of these folks, they're citizens too. So they're not just county employees, but they're citizens as well. More than half of the staff of the Solicitor's Office actually are both citizens and county employees. Organizational structure of the office. We are a 42-member operation. Presently, we have about 5 vacancies across 3 divisions. The 5 divisions of the office are prosecution, investigation, victim services, administrative support, and intake. On the books, we have about 20 full-time positions. Those are coded positions. And a position does not represent a person, it just represents the position. It might be several people in the same position, right? Additionally, we have about 10 part-time positions, but of reference and of note to you, oftentimes our part-time budget is not funded in a way that we can fill those part-time positions. Additionally, we do have a growth, since 2019, we've added about 6 positions. 3 of those positions are the result of reclassifications. Those positions include the Chief of Staff position, the Administrative Manager position, a Program Development Coordinator, a Senior Paralegal, and Investigative Assistant, as well as Executive Assistant position. We do have a growth strategy plan over the next 4 years. We would like to add about 7 new full-time positions, about 7. Historical reference for you. Since about 2004, the office personnel, in 2004, the office personnel comprised of about 24 staff members. In 21 years, our office has not doubled in size, but the crime has tripled. I want you to understand that. In 21 years, we have not doubled in size, crime has tripled. We have an office of about 42, roughly. Right now, in 2004, they had an office of 24. The crime rate has not been static. So let's talk about our commitment to our people. Who are our people? What people are we talking about? For you, you might say that we're talking about the citizens, and I agree, we are talking about the citizens. But not only are we talking about the citizens, we're talking about the employees, personnel. To the citizens, it is our duty to provide services, to include, for you, public health, safety, welfare, that improves their lives. My office falls directly under the public safety arena, in the public safety arena. And what we're tasked to do is to provide swift, fair, and just prosecutions. But to the employees, both you and I, we're tasked to provide fair compensation, benefits, and working conditions while ensuring a safe working environment and following established policies regarding hiring, promotions, discipline, and termination, all while managing the county's budget effectively to maintain the necessary services to the community. So as we move further into the conversation, the areas of focus that I really want us to look at is operational oversight and budgetary flexibility. The key part of operational oversight requires, for me, budgetary flexibility. And the lack of budget flexibility leads to inefficient hiring and/or promotional practices. Over the last several years, prosecution has gone through great changes. So much, in fact, that there's been research papers done. One to note was done by the College of William and Mary Law School, where it talks about the prosecutor vacancy crisis, and it's a national thing. And the author of the paper says that there's a prosecutor vacancy crisis in the United States. Prosecutors are quitting in droves, and there are few applicants to replace them. In Houston and Los Angeles, more than 15% of prosecutor positions are open. In Detroit, the vacancy rate exceeds 20%. In Alameda, 25% of prosecutor positions are empty. And in Miami, a staggering 33% of prosecutor positions are unfilled. The situation is equally dire in many large and small counties across the nation. Our legal market have seen shifts from highly experienced practitioners to novice, people straight out of law school. And with the market shifts and the market dynamics, I need the flexibility to be able to hire where the market is. So, for example, if the market has shifted to all novice, but I only have positions allocated for senior level prosecutors, I need to be able to hire a novice in the senior level prosecutor position and promote them as necessary as they matriculate through the office and gain more experience. Right now, the way our system is set up is I don't have that flexibility. I have to come to the board for reclassifications or executive session meetings without the necessary flexibility. Additionally, there's been missed opportunities. For example, in the last budget cycle, fiscal year 25, there was an executive level position that was vacated. Okay, it was vacated by a 30-year incumbent who was at the highest step and grade given a 30-year career. My request to the board, the chairman at the time, on the vacant position was to adjust the entry salary for that position, which would have saved the county about $46,780. The request for the budget, it was budget neutral, and initially it was approved. But later, before it came to the entire board, it was articulated to electeds and department heads that no reclassifications and no new positions would be hired, and it will be reconsidered at a December 2024 mid-year evaluation, re-evaluation, a budget evaluation. That never happened. So now my request for the fiscal year 26 is higher because now I have an incumbent in the position and the market conditions have changed. And so now we're in a space where we could have saved $46,000, but because of market conditions, because I now have an incumbent in the position, we lost an opportunity to save. It's cheaper to do the thing now than to do the thing later. That's opportunity costs. Moving forward, the investment in employers' retention, or employee retention program, there's both short-term and long-term benefits. The operational control by way of budget flexibility is a part of my retention program and will yield benefits across the board. For example, for short-term benefits, reduced turnover costs, higher productivity, improved employee morale, better customer satisfaction. Who are our customers? Our customers are the citizens as well as the county employees, and a stronger workplace culture. We've been very intentional, our county has been very intentional about speaking about culture and changing the culture, shifting the culture, and this move to more budget flexibility would allow a stronger workplace culture. In the long term, we will create a stronger county reputation. Imagine a county known as a county that cares about its workforce, and although they are trained up well enough to leave, they are treated well enough that they choose to stay. Also, higher innovations in institutional knowledge, cost savings on recruitment and training, which is very expensive to onboard people It's more expensive to acquire than it is to retain, as well as sustainable growth and a competitive advantage. Because what the competitive advantage will create increased employee loyalty and advocacy. We'll have people, employees, who are walking billboards for Clayton County. A stitch in time saves 9. Basically means paying less now often means paying more later. So whereas we take opportunities to cut costs now, we end up paying for it later on, and the economic conditions often are different and not necessarily better. So it's cheaper to just cut your losses and do the thing now. Let me say this. The Office of the Solicitor General, for over a decade, well before I was solicitor, has been very conscientious stewards of the taxpayers' dime. We, by trend, from 2020 have always returned money back to the county's general fund. And what you see on this chart, that's just salaries. That does not include all of the expense accounts, nor does it include revenue accounts, because the Solicitor General's office also creates revenue for the county. To date, for example, the year-to-date year-to-date is revenue for fiscal year 25 in fines is $1.2 million. In pretrial diversion application fees is $58,836. On average, the pretrial diversion program returns to the general fund about $250,000. The fines run in the area of about $2.5 million annually. We don't ask for a whole lot. Oftentimes we give back more than we ask. And so my ask to you, my budgetary ask, is for flexibility. Budget at the highest level of the graduated structure by position across all positions coded in my office. What would that allow me to do? That'll allow me to bring in talent and promote where promotion is warranted or merited. Additionally, I'm asking to create promotional tracks. Graduated progressive promotional tracks engenders long-term goals for employees to work towards, which has always historically been this county's modus operandi. We used to have something called a longevity pay. We no longer have that, but this is my version of creating longevity pay. The longer you stay, the more you get paid, because your experience level changes, and if your talent merits it, you will see a promotion. There will be upward mobility. Additionally, operational oversight. The SG leaders, the leaders you see in this room, and some who are not, are best positioned to recommend promotion, and the SG, myself, is best positioned to approve or deny, as opposed to me having to consistently come before this board in executive session asking, can I promote this person, or can I reclass this person? We've had conversations before with the prior board about allowing electeds and other officials the flexibility of managing the budget in the way that they don't have to consistently come before the board, because it's inefficient and it doesn't benefit the employees of this county. As well, and to incentivize longevity, we're creating long-term goals towards internal upward mobility, which motivates longevity. And I'm asking you to take immediate action, again, because delayed action often costs more. How do we get there? Well, the strategy is to budget at the highest level of the graduated structure. This would allow operational leaders like myself to be more responsive to labor market trends and to hire or promote as needed without the necessity for board meetings.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Do you all have interns that actually work with you all from like Clark Atlanta and different higher level institutions?
Yes, we accept interns from as low as high school.
Okay.
All the way up through law school students.
Yeah, I'm just asking because I had a conversation with them, and as you were talking about some of the issues or things that you all needed, I want to talk to you about working with some of those interns
Absolutely.
and bringing them in to help you all in the office. I think that would be a great relationship that we can get
Absolutely.
with Clark Atlanta and do.
Now, the only caveat to that, in some ways, interns, they can do certain things in the office,
Yeah.
but a law degree is what's required in a lot of cases. And
Yeah.
so, whereas
most of these
if it's
kids-
administrative stuff, they certainly can assist in administrative stuff. But
what about
we can
the-
create a pipeline, and
Okay.
we've been trying to partner with schools like University of Georgia School of Law, UGA, Mercer, and John Marshall about creating a pipeline. In fact, in the next couple of weeks, we're actually going to be going to the Simplicity Law School Consortium career fair, and we do that annually.
Okay.
But
So what
again,
about pre-law students as well, like coming from those colleges and universities?
Absolutely.
That are on those tracks that need to see what you all do before they decide what they want to do. Because I was
Absolutely.
one of those kids who needed to see it first and then decided this is where I'm going in life.
Absolutely.
And that's what we need to kind of.
I completely agree, and we're all about creating a pipeline. One of the biggest challenges with the law schools presently, though, is that a number of students are disinterested in public service for a number of reasons.
But that's
You
our
look
job
at the
to get them back
you look at
interested.
federal.
So that's why I want them to come over
Yeah.
there and work with you, so
Yes,
they can
yes,
get
ma'am.
back interested in some things that they want to do and things of that nature, and then come back to our county and work for you.
We certainly are open to every opportunity for assistance, and we welcome it. Yes,
I
ma'am.
have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
About how much longer? Do you
I'm real at the end, basically.
Oh, okay. I didn't want to just walk out.
Okay. Okay. Do you have a question?
No, but
Okay. Okay.
I
He's
said
at the
something
end.
else.
He's at the end. He's at the end.
All right. Well, I'll move towards the summary. In summary, I'm asking you to make an investment in personnel because personnel does in fact matter. And so, to the extent that there are questions, I'll entertain questions. And
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, are there any questions at this time?
Yes.
All right.
Just
Mr. Davis?
just quickly, is this a request to amend your current budget, or is this a request for your next fiscal year budget?
it's both. There were requests that were made in fiscal year 25 that you'll see mirrored in fiscal year 26 requests. So to the extent that budget amendments can be made in 25, which there was a communication that there was going to be a review or reconsideration in December, then I'm asking for that. But to the extent that if the board is inclined to just wait through the budget process, and then I'll wait through the budget process and ask that it be honored in the budget process of 26.
Well, and I think that's kind of where I'm looking at, because we are roughly, about 60%, 65% through this budgetary cycle. And I know we're in a precarious situation right now. Granted, I'm glad you brought this before the board now for something to be considered for that. And the other part about that is we're talking about the inefficiencies which you and I have spoken about. Yes, you should be able to run your department, but within a set budget that has been agreed upon and set forth by the board. So,
Thank you.
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember opera funds. Is
They
that
no longer
your
exist
office?
for us.
Okay.
They've
So
been,
did you
they've-
transfer some of those people
Back-
over, or is that what you're?
I think they were taken.
I know, but I mean, are you using some of those?
We
as
used
the
as
budget?
much as we could, but it's gone at this point.
Okay.
We used ARPA funds for provisional prosecutors as well as some clerical positions. But I believe probably a month or two ago, it expired.
Are these some of the ones you're putting back, or?
No, these are not ARPA funded positions.
No. They wouldn't be, right. Opera's gone, that's what I'm saying. Because when some people came before us, they said, okay, after the opera funds are gone, then that's it.
Yeah,
They
and
wouldn't
I'm
come
not.
back and ask for anything.
No, that's not what I'm doing.
Oh, okay.
No, these were never ARPA positions.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions at this time? All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be meeting and talking, and
Yes,
we will
ma'am.
move from here.
Wonderful, thank you.
All right. All right. We're good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes tonight's meeting. Thank you, and you all have a wonderful evening. The time is 6:58 p.m. Thank you.